I stood in line at the DMV when it happened. Yeah, I know. You probably expected something more cinematic. But no, it was fluorescent lights, gum-stained tiles, and a woman yelling, B37, that set my life on fire. My phone buzzed. One text. I've been thinking. You don't really mean anything to me anymore. No, hi. No, we need to talk. Just that. One sentence. Flat. Empty. Sent at 2:14 p.m. while I was holding my stupid number ticket, trying to renew the registration for her car. The one I bought. The one I maintained. The one I drove to work because she said she didn't like morning traffic. I stared at the screen for a while, thinking maybe it was a mistake. Maybe she meant to send it to someone else. But nope. My name was at the top. Sent with intention. Like a bullet fired at close range. The guy behind me asked if I was in line. I didn't answer. I just dropped the ticket and walked out. No registration. No conversation. Just me, my phone, and a sudden roaring silence that made every step echo. The rest of the day was a blur. I don't even remember driving home. What I do remember, walking into our apartment and seeing her on the couch. Not crying. Not even looking up. She just said, I meant what I wrote. I didn't want to wait till tonight. I asked her, so what am I supposed to do now? And she said, whatever you want. It doesn't matter. No shouting. No affair confession. Not even boredom in her voice. Just indifference. And that, somehow, hurt worse than betrayal. Because it meant I wasn't worth fighting with. I was just background noise. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't pack. I didn't even eat. I just sat at the dining table until the sun came up, listening to her snore from the bedroom we used to share. And in that stillness, something cracked open in me. At 6:17 a.m., I stood up, grabbed my wallet and keys, and walked out the door. No note. No suitcase. No goodbye. And I swear to you, I've never looked back. But she did. Oh, she did. And when she came searching, I was already gone. She didn't even check if I'd left. When I walked out that morning, the apartment door clicked behind me like it was locking away a version of myself I couldn't stand anymore. Quiet, passive, invisible. I didn't take a single thing. No bag, no charger, not even my sneakers. Just my old keys and the debit card I'd forgotten to remove from her account. I think some part of me wanted to disappear without warning, just to feel what she must have felt when she decided I didn't matter. I didn't have a plan. I didn't even have anywhere to go. I just drove. No GPS. No direction. The sun was barely up, the streets still yawning awake, and I was cruising through neighborhoods that didn't know my name, didn't ask me to stay. That felt safe. It wasn't until I was an hour outside the city that my phone started buzzing. 10 missed calls. All from her. No texts. Not one apology. Not one comeback. Just a long string of missed calls, like the silence I gave her suddenly started screaming. But I didn't answer. I parked the car in front of a random diner, went inside, and ordered pancakes I didn't even want. The waitress, older, kind eyes, probably someone's grandma, asked if I was okay. I said I'd just left my wife. She didn't flinch, just nodded and said, sometimes people don't know what they lost until the quiet hits. It was the first time that day someone saw me. Meanwhile, Maribel was spiraling. I could tell from the voicemails. The first few were sharp. Cold. Seriously? You're going to ghost me now? Real mature. But by the fifth one, her voice was different. Lower, breathless, like the silence had started to press down on her chest. By noon, she was texting. Where did you go? Can we talk? I didn't mean it like that. But the thing is, she did mean it. You don't drop a sentence like, you don't mean anything to me, by accident. That's the kind of phrase that simmers for months. Maybe years. It doesn't slip out. It leaks out from a heart that already left you long ago. I turned off my phone. I know, coward move, but I needed the noise to stop. Just for a bit. That night, I checked into a cheap motel with carpet that smelled like disappointment and a broken vending machine. I didn't care. I slept with the curtains open, the moon glaring down at me like it knew a secret I hadn't figured out yet. Back at the apartment, she was unraveling, but I wouldn't find that out until later. All I knew was that the woman who said I didn't mean anything had suddenly realized she was alone. But by the time she realized she wanted me back, I was already halfway to becoming someone she couldn't reach, and I wasn't done disappearing yet. I woke up in that rundown motel with a neck cramp, a headache, and a sick feeling that somehow, she still owned the oxygen I was breathing, even from a distance. I rolled over to check my phone, half dreading what I'd see. 37 missed calls, 17 messages, and one name I hadn't seen in years. Savannah. Yeah, that's Savannah, her former best friend. The one who stopped coming around 2 years ago after some vague falling out that Maribel never really explained. I always thought it was weird how fast they went from inseparable to strangers. I'd asked once and she snapped, "Don't bring up people who aren't relevant anymore." Well, apparently Savannah had a different version of relevance, because her message said, "I heard what happened. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but you need to know the truth." My stomach dropped. I stared at the message for a long time, then finally typed, "What truth?" She responded almost instantly, "She's been lying to you for a long time." And I kept quiet because I thought it wasn't my place. "But you deserve better than this. She's been seeing someone. Not just recently, since before your last anniversary." The words burned. I asked her who, and when she typed his name, I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it made everything click into place like the final puzzle piece of a picture I didn't want to see. Ben. The guy who installed our new kitchen cabinets last summer. The contractor who always stayed late to finish things she swore were urgent. The same guy who once asked me if I was comfortable being the calm one in the relationship. I didn't think much of it at the time. Now I wanted to throw a chair. Savannah said she walked in on them at his place once. That Maribel told her if she ever opened her mouth, she'd ruin her life. So Savannah cut contact. She couldn't stomach seeing me play happy husband while Maribel was living a second life behind my back. I wanted to scream, punch something, drive to Ben's house and tear him apart. But I didn't. Instead, I sat on the motel bed, staring at the ugly carpet, remembering all the little things I'd ignored. Those late-night client meetings, the weird defensiveness, the perfume she never wore for me. She didn't just say I meant nothing. She'd been showing me for months. That afternoon, I went quiet again. But this time, it wasn't just silence. It was planning. Because if she thought I'd just vanish quietly and let her rewrite the story of our life to make herself the victim, she didn't know me at all. By the time the sun dipped below the motel's rusted sign that night, my silence had hardened into something new. I wasn't numb anymore. I was awake. And the clarity hit me like a freight train. I'd been paying for her entire lifestyle, and she used every dollar I gave her to disrespect me. I didn't even feel like crying anymore. I felt like cleaning house. You see, the lease to our apartment? It's in my name. So is the bank account we shared. And guess whose car still hadn't been registered because I never finished the DMV paperwork? That's right, hers. The woman who told me I didn't mean anything to her was about to find out just how much I actually meant when the utilities stopped working, the locks changed, and the credit card suddenly declined. I went back to the city that night. Quietly. No announcement. I parked 2 blocks from the apartment, heart pounding like I was about to rob a bank. But I wasn't there to see her. I was there to take what was mine. I slipped into the building while someone else was coming out, and my old keys still worked. She hadn't changed the locks. Typical. She never thought I had a spine. Never thought I'd make a move. The apartment was dark. Silent. No TV. No music. Just this heavy stillness, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. I grabbed a duffel bag and packed only what I needed. My documents, my laptop, the watch my dad gave me before he died, and a few clothes. Everything else, I left behind, including the wedding photo on the bookshelf. I stared at it for a second. We looked so happy. But now, all I could see was how hard I was gripping her waist, and how loosely her hand sat on my shoulder, like she was already halfway out the frame. Before I left, I took one last look around, then opened my banking app. I transferred every cent from our joint account to a new one I'd opened earlier that day, after Savannah sent me the name of her cousin, an attorney. I closed the account, froze the credit cards, scheduled cancellation for the power and internet, left just enough time for her to enjoy one last evening of pretending nothing was wrong. Then I locked the door behind me and took the keys with me. At 6:03 the next morning, the text started again. Why is the internet out? Did you take money from the account? What the hell is going on? No, good morning. No, are you okay? Just panic. Beautiful, desperate panic. I didn't answer. I let her sit in it. By 8:45, the real storm hit. She showed up at my job. She was dressed like she hadn't slept. Hair a mess, no makeup, eyes swollen. She barged into the parking lot, screaming my name, demanding I talk to her. My coworkers stared like they were watching live theater. And me? I kept walking, because if I was nothing to her, then she was finally about to find out what it feels like when nothing disappears. I didn't go back to the motel. That night, I stayed somewhere else. Somewhere she'd never think to look, because she never cared enough to ask. Savannah let me crash on her couch. Yeah, I know how that sounds. And no, before your mind goes there, nothing happened. Not then, not even close. I was still too broken to feel anything but wreckage. Savannah just gave me what I hadn't had in months: space to breathe, and a voice in my ear that didn't make me feel small. She met me at the door with a blanket and a hot drink. No judgment, just silence. And weirdly, that silence didn't feel empty. It felt like a pause, like the first deep breath after choking for hours. We sat in her tiny apartment, surrounded by dusty houseplants and chipped mugs, and I told her everything. What Maribel said, what she did, what I'd done in return. And when I was done, Savannah just shook her head and said, "I told you she was cold. I told you before you married her." She had. I didn't listen. But now, the woman who once warned me had become my safe zone, and the woman I married was losing her mind trying to find me. The next morning, Savannah handed me her spare phone, her old one, and said, "If she finds your number, she won't find this. Use it if you want, or throw it in the river." I didn't even ask why she still had it. I just thanked her. I didn't know it yet, but that phone would become the thing that ended everything. By noon, Maribel was emailing me. She must have realized the bank wasn't a glitch, that I didn't just leave, I'd evacuated, that I hadn't gone silent, I disconnected. Then came the real kicker, the voicemail that changed everything. She was crying, hysterical, rambling, but in the middle of it, she said something that stuck in my ribs. "I don't love him, okay? I don't love Ben. It was just something that happened. But you? You're the one I never thought would leave. You're the one who made me feel safe." Safe, as inconvenient. Predictable, always there like a doormat safe. She never saw me as someone she needed to choose, just someone who'd never leave the room, even when she spat on the floor. But I had left, and she had finally realized I wasn't walking back through the door. Savannah and I listened to the message together. She didn't say anything, just handed me her laptop. "Write it all down," she said. "Everything she's done, everything you've found. If she comes for you legally, emotionally, financially, whatever, you'll need it." And that's when it clicked. I'd been surviving. Now it was time to prepare, to go from invisible to invincible. Maribel wanted me to be nothing. I was about to become the quietest storm she'd ever seen. Savannah wasn't the kind of person who snooped, but I was. I had to be. I'd spent years trusting someone who looked me in the eye while lying through her teeth. So when I remembered that I'd helped set up Maribel's email on our old shared tablet, the one she left in the hall closet and probably forgot existed, I powered it on and prayed she hadn't logged out. She hadn't. No password, no two-factor, just a digital diary of a woman who never thought I'd grow a spine. I didn't know what I was even looking for. Maybe more messages from Ben. Maybe confirmation that the affair went further back than I'd feared. But what I found, it was so much worse. There were folders, organized ones, labeled things like clients, personal, vacation, and then one called Plan B. I froze. I opened it. Slowly, my chest tight. Screenshots, PDFs, scans of bank statements, notes with titles like timeline and alimony leverage. Things she had no business having. She'd been gathering financial documents for months, mine. From the joint account, the business account I used for freelance projects, even old tax records. All of it saved neatly, like she was preparing for war. Not divorce. War. She wasn't just cheating. She was planning to bleed me dry. Like she knew she'd eventually walk away, but only after she made sure I couldn't. And then I found the emails to a law firm. They were dated 3 months before she told me I meant nothing. She'd been shopping for attorneys behind my back, asking about asset protection, mentioning how emotionally distant I'd been, laying the groundwork to paint herself as the victim. It wasn't an affair. It was an ambush. She was never going to leave me gently. She was going to gut me legally, take everything I worked for, and still walk away wearing the victim badge while I got branded the heartless husband. I felt sick. I wanted to throw the tablet through the wall. Instead, I took screenshots of everything, backed it all up. Savannah helped me upload it to a secure drive. I was shaking the whole time. Not because I was scared, but because for the first time, I could see it clearly. This wasn't love turned sour. It was premeditated ruin, and she almost pulled it off. Almost. But now I had everything. Evidence, motive, timeline, digital fingerprints. She thought she'd buried me in silence. But all she did was give me time to dig her blueprint up. And when I used it, it wasn't going to be loud or messy. It was going to be cold. I didn't scream. I didn't show up at her job. I didn't go full movie meltdown like some guy crashing his wife's affair party. That's not how I wanted this to end. She wanted to be the victim. She had the story written, the script rehearsed, the documents gathered. All she needed was for me to explode, to fall apart in public, to look unstable, to give her a reason to claim emotional abuse, financial manipulation, all those ugly legal buzzwords she sprinkled into her lawyer emails. So I stayed quiet. Until I didn't. See, Mary Bell works for a consulting firm that prides itself on discretion and ethics. One of those places where image is everything and scandal is a death sentence. And in the pile of emails I found, there were more than a few that crossed the line. She'd forwarded client documents to her personal email. She'd discussed deals in casual threads with friends. She even name-dropped one of her clients in a text with Ben, laughing about how he thinks I'm helping him win a settlement when I'm actually feeding it to the other guy. It was sickening and very, very illegal. I called the firm, didn't leave my name, just said I was a concerned party with reason to believe one of their employees was violating confidentiality protocols and breaching client data. I gave no specifics, just enough to make them dig. I didn't need to tell them what to find. They'd uncover it all on their own. 3 days later, she was suspended pending an internal investigation. She showed up at Savannah's apartment the next night. I wasn't even surprised. She was pounding the door like she owned the building, screaming my name loud enough for the whole block to hear. Savannah told her to leave. Calmly, respectfully, Mary Bell called her a backstabbing traitor, accused her of poisoning me, of setting all this up. I stepped into the hallway, finally. Her face changed the second she saw me. Not relief, not rage, fear. She asked why I was doing this, why I was trying to destroy her. And I told her I wasn't trying. She did it all herself. She burned the bridge. I just lit a match on the ashes. She started crying. Not the fake kind. The real, raw, snot and shaking kind. But it didn't move me. Not anymore. Not after everything she said. Everything she did. Everything she planned to do. She thought I was weak because I didn't yell. Because I didn't cheat. Because I stayed and tried to fix what she was secretly dismantling. But now she was looking at the version of me she never wanted to meet. The one who knew everything. And still had one more move left. She didn't scream this time. After I told her everything, what I knew, what I'd seen, what I'd already done, Mary Bell just sat down on the curb outside Savannah's building like her body couldn't hold up her lies anymore. The woman who once told me I didn't mean anything now looked like someone who had lost everything. I didn't feel proud or victorious. Not really. It was quieter than that. Like watching a storm finally burn itself out. She asked me if there was a way back. If I'd ever be willing to talk. To try. To maybe start again. And I told her, gently, no. Because I had already started again. That same day, I filed for divorce through the lawyer Savannah connected me with. Not out of spite. Not as revenge. But as freedom. Clean, legal, and final. I didn't even contest anything. I just walked away from the assets, the furniture, the accounts, everything. Because I realized something no one had ever taught me. I wasn't built to win wars. I was built to walk away from them. 2 weeks later, I moved out of state. Quietly. No goodbye party. No dramatic announcement. Just a small rental house with peeling paint and creaky floors, and peace. Real, actual, silence for the right reasons peace. And Savannah? We stayed in touch. Slowly. Carefully. Respectfully. I didn't run into her arms, and she didn't try to fix me. But she called sometimes. Checked in. Made sure I was eating. Smiled in a way that made me believe maybe, not all endings are bitter. A few months later, I got a job doing freelance design again. I work from a laptop near a window that looks out onto trees instead of apartment walls. I make less money, but I wake up without knots in my stomach. I drink coffee that tastes like mine. Mary Bell still tries to reach out sometimes. Short messages, a photo, a memory, an apology, but I don't reply. Not out of hate, out of healing. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can say to the person who broke you is nothing. And sometimes, the most beautiful chapter of your life begins when you finally realize you were never the one who was small. You were just standing next to someone who made themselves feel big by shrinking you. This was my story. Thanks for listening. And if you're watching this and you've ever felt like someone made you invisible, you're not. Trust me, you're just getting started.